Everything, Everywhere, All at Once won. Pretty much everything, everywhere, all at once, and especially at the 95th Oscars this year. It won Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Editing, and it totally deserved that Best Picture win. Not to say those other films were undeserving, far from it, but I think this was the right choice. I'm really pleased that it managed to do it. The Daniels, kind of like Johnson & Johnson from Die Hard, except if Johnson & Johnson were directors instead of cops, have finally managed to outdo themselves after the Majesty that was the Turn Down for What music video.
Turn down for what?
There was also that time I played a dead body that could do lots of things, kind of like a Swiss Army knife, but it was a man, you know? It was like a Swiss Army, like a Swiss Army guy. Yes, that'll do. There's something about Everything Everywhere All at Once that I noticed since its release that set it apart from the other Best Picture winners. I kept getting comments on my videos all year round asking me to do something on it, even on videos that had nothing to do with multiverses or even movies. That's quite rare for a Best Picture nominee. Whilst I've enjoyed contenders like Tar and the Banshees of Inisherin, I don't really expect to get comments from people asking me to make video essays on them. Internet film culture, particularly on YouTube, is by and large geared towards the biggest movies and the biggest spectacles. You do a video on Under the Silver Lake and nobody cares.
See, nobody cares.
I was also surprised to hear people like my mum wanted to see it. Lots of people in my life who aren't film fans or enjoy big sci-fi concepts had heard of it and wanted to see it. It had a cultural moment that was impactful and well received. And then many months later, it got nominated for Best Picture. It had legs within the pop culture consciousness. Whilst there is certainly snobbery within the Oscars, Roger Deakins is absolutely right about that Batman cinematography snub. A great film is a great film no matter the genre or the time of year it was released. Whilst popularity isn't a hallmark of a truly great movie, I think it's really special that this year's Best Picture winner is something that film buffs and the casual moviegoer could get behind. It bucks the trend that the Oscars only celebrate film elitism, that idea put forth by Trevor Noah that you have vegetable films that you have to watch because they're good for you. No, films that are good and deserve to be seen. Films that gain traction have a lot to do with marketing budgets and movie politics and, say, a company like Disney pushing out smaller films from being screened at all.
Disney came to the ArcLight people and said, no, you are going to play Star Wars.
I think by and large audiences are very smart and are more than willing to engage with things if they're marketed well enough, if the gluttony of attention span ruining internet content doesn't pervade every creeping second of their lives, including this stupid video. Go away. That's not to say that the Best Picture nominees weren't spectacular. Banshees was teetering on becoming my favourite film of 2022 until I watched RRR. Part of the problem is that good movies are buried by big studio fare, and then after the fact they end up getting this reputation as being pretentious and artsy. Too artsy for general audiences to enjoy. Now it's gotten so bad that anything that appears to have lots of talking in it is written off that way, and it sucks. It's sad because many films of yesteryear were huge cultural moments and Best Picture winners or nominees far more regularly. It doesn't help when something like Coda wins Best Picture a couple of years back. Honestly, who the hell has mentioned that movie since it had its Oscar push from Apple? Did anybody really care to begin with? I don't mean to crap on one movie to hoist up another, and I'm sure everyone put love into that movie just like any other, but it was pretty disingenuous as a win. It was the kind of win that people who feel disillusioned with the state of prestige film can point to. We should be giving people more reasons to love and celebrate film, not reasons to feel like the tastes that mass markets have forced upon them in the first place make them feel stupid. Significant is the fact that it didn't come out in that specific Oscar season. The fact that there is a time where movies tipped to win Oscars come out around that November to January period worldwide only further serves to promote the idea of elitism, even if that's not really the case. Over the years, it's created a wedge between movies that come out and deserve Oscars and movies that come out the rest of the year. Well, Everything Everywhere has come to remind us that that's baloney, and anything can win Best Picture no matter what time of year it's released. I don't want to see big movies winning Best Picture in a popularity contest just for the sake of it. Remember a few years back when the Oscars tried to introduce a Best Popular Film category to try and get back in touch with audiences? But I also think it shows how special Everything Everywhere was, and then it didn't try to be revered and popular at the same time. It simply was. It's a great picture, it's got a really strong emotional core, it's got some great spectacle and comedy, and it's bolstered by a slew of now Oscar-winning performances. I think part of the reason audiences now can be put off by the Oscar bait release slot is because it's kind of telling you it's going to be a great film, Oscar-worthy even, before you even see it. And people don't like being told what to do. Everything Everywhere's win feels very organic. Many people have asked me to comment on the movie, particularly whenever I've spoken about multiverses. And yes, it was a slam dunk for the Russo brothers produced movie to outshine the MCU's Multiverse of Madness in the same month in 2022. It proved that you can have all the money in the world, but if your creativity extends to swapping traffic light colours, your dollars can only take you so far. Contrast that with Everything, which had a tiny team of visual effects artists working tirelessly to deliver some of the most convincing and charming effects all year. How nice is it that this year's Best Picture winner didn't bankrupt the company that brought you the effects, and the Academy didn't shoo them off stage when they voiced this? Remember Life of Pi? It also really has something to say about the idea of consequences and individuality when dealing with infinite permutations of your life. Perhaps I was asking too much of other multiverse movies to look inwards when dealing with three people who seem to be on the same destiny of losing loved ones and what that might mean to their choices, but I think this movie proves I wasn't. People tell you to turn your brain off and enjoy that kind of thing for what it is, but I'd point to something like Everything Everywhere and say no, you can have your thrills and spills and still examine the purpose of a life and the choices made with integrity. Having multiple splintered outcomes to one person's life and the massive ramifications to the smallest changes isn't something that should just be quipped away before the next big set piece. It's mad that no other multiverse film in the last few years has really tackled the idea that nothing matters in an infinite branching multiverse. The existential crisis that emerges from that, and the humanist conclusion that comes from simply deciding that kindness does matter. Partly why it's been so popular is because in spite of its multiverse plotting, its themes are universal. We all want to be the better versions of ourselves, and I think this movie is timely amongst a constant online culture of self-improvement and excess porn. Coming out post the many lockdowns as well, and hearing Michelle Yeoh say,
"How can we get back?"
was something else that I know really hit me. Everything Everywhere is uplifting and inspiring because it teaches us not to focus on what has happened, to let go and concentrate on what is, to embrace life's absurdity, to admit that nothing makes sense, but the people we spend our time with and the real love that we share is really the only thing that is worth fighting for. I think it also corners that fear of firm choices in life, that notion that you could be the worst version of yourself, the worst decisions and mistakes you made have layered up to create the worst chain of events. That harsh feeling you get from not feeling good enough, or loved enough, or worthy enough. To look at those feelings we all get at times within the scope of such engrossing science fiction concepts is nothing short of brilliant. The idea of doing random things that don't make any sense to make connections to other universes not only plays into the themes of the movie perfectly, but it makes for so many memorable moments and points of tension. The paper cuts between the fingers are so wince-worthy, and eating that chapstick, ugh! It totally deserved to sweep things like Best Original Screenplay and Editing too. It speeds through so many concepts and rules to the multiverse hopping, whilst never losing sight of the characters and the action. That's of course brought together by some seriously slick editing. I'm always floored watching everyone hop from world to world, and the film often juggles so many different locations at once, yet never feels confusing. You never lose a sense of space, and you never lose an ounce of energy to the action. It's a real editing feat. Michelle Yeoh and Stephanie Hsu's mother-daughter relationship is the heart of the movie. What struck me about it is that there was truth to it, particularly with Evelyn's homophobia towards her daughter. Rather than just having every character exemplify the tolerant opinion, I think it was much more real to have a protagonist that holds the same kind of views older generations are prone to. That arc of acceptance and understanding and realising the error of her ways by the end was only so powerful because it felt true. You have a diverse cast, an LGBTQ plus character who isn't window dressing, and it all feeds into the story, rather than it being some blink and you miss it lip service that can easily be cut for certain territories. If you can cut those things, I question how genuine you're being about including them. Films in the 90s did half the things certain big businesses praised for doing with the bare minimum now. Hell, you know Dog Day Afternoon is about a gay protagonist holding up a bank to pay for his partner's transition surgery. That was the biggest movie of 1975, a critical and commercial success, was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director, Best Editing, and won for Best Original Screenplay. That movie would never be made today. We've gone backwards in a lot of ways, not forwards. Those kinds of movies are possible not from huge corporations choke-holding the theatrical experience, but by having a wide array of films readily available to as many people as possible. Ke Huy Quan winning is awesome. He was great in the movie, and he's been long overdue a break in Hollywood. I think people immediately calling for him to become short round again kind of defeats the point a little bit. He appeared in a movie that did what Disney is currently trying to do, but better, and now people want to see him do something for Disney. Wouldn't it be cooler if he went on to star in more awesome original projects that were put in theatres and that lots of people saw? That's not to say he wouldn't kill it, and Short Round would certainly be a better legacy character to give the keys to over a rushed new character, but it doesn't get away from the fact that original movies shouldn't be training grounds for franchises all the time. If anything, doing the franchises will allow you to make weirder fare like this. Ke Huy Quan becoming Short Round would be doing a Robert Pattinson in reverse. It was definitely a strong year of contenders. I'm happy Brendan Fraser won, but I could have just as easily seen Colin Farrell take Best Actor for his magnificent turn as Podrick. Elvis was a fun if average biopic, but Austin Butler deserved the nom, and even the win in any other year. Jamie Lee Curtis's win for this was contentious, but it's always good to remember that a lot of actors win for their careers rather than for that one performance. True Detective on TV did as much for the McConaughey as Dallas Buyers Club did. I know that's frustrating to a degree, and it's not like Kerry Condon and Angela Bassett weren't contenders, but ultimately I think it was a fine win. If it was my vote, it would go to Stephanie Hsu. 2022 was a great year in film. In terms of Hollywood, the blockbusters struck back against an increasingly stale and played out superhero genre. Top Gun Maverick and Avatar 2 were action movies that looked like they actually cost $200 million, but you also had great pure comedies like Jackass Forever, proving that audiences will still go to the cinema for laughs. We need a more diverse range of films back in the theatre. I love the mythos of superheroes, but if you're one of those commenters that gets annoyed when these movies are dunked on, stop and think about how quickly the landscape of movies have changed in such a short space of time, and whether that's right. One film shouldn't be clogging up the multiplex. All the billion-dollar releases shouldn't be mainly made by the same corporation. I know a lot of you champion diversity in movie making, and that's good. Well, how diverse can we be when the same mouse is employing everybody? We need different studios, different genres, world cinema to have its place in theatres. I think 2022 was a step in the right direction for some real change in the cinematic landscape, and I hope we can continue to get more interesting original projects, or at the very least, sequels that actually try, instead of a streaming gluttony of content that looks like film sometimes, but behaves like TV and isn't as satisfying as either. Congratulations on Everything Everywhere all at once. A big thank you to my full fat tier patron, Dr. Chike. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.